Taeho Kim stood before the black stone monument, his hand pressed against the cold surface. Rain fell softly on New Haven, the human colony world that should have been a graveyard. Names covered the monument. 40,000 names. 40,000 people who lived because of 17 aliens who chose to die. The wind carried the scent of earth flowers, planted here decades ago by survivors who wanted to remember home. Taeho remembered being 7 years old, lying in a medical tent, his body burning with fever. The crimson plague had swept through the colony like wildfire. Children died first, then the adults. The colony's doctors had no cure, no treatment, nothing that worked. He remembered his mother crying, holding his hand, praying to gods she didn't believe in. He remembered the communication officer screaming into the radio, begging any ship in range to help them. Every species in the galaxy heard their distress call. Every species said no quarantine protocols, they said. Too dangerous, they said. Not worth the risk, they said. Only one species answered. The Thornians. Taeho touched the special section of the monument. 17 names in Thornian script, translated below in human letters. These were the healers who came to New Haven knowing they might die. Their biology was different, plant-based instead of flesh, but the plague found a way to kill them too. They worked until they couldn't work anymore. They mixed medicines from their own bodies. They sang to dying children in voices like wind through leaves. 13 Thornians died creating the cure. 4 more died administering it to every colonist. By the time the plague ended, 17 Thornians had given everything to save a species they barely knew. The galaxy called them fools. The other species laughed at the Thornians for wasting resources on humans. What did humanity have to offer? They were primitives, newcomers to space, weak and emotional and bound by strange ideas about honor and debt. The Thornians never asked for payment. They never demanded anything in return. When Elder Vess led the survivors back to their ship, he simply said, "Life is precious. We could save you, so we did." 30 years had passed since that day. Taeho grew up, joined Earth's space fleet, and became a captain. He commanded the diplomatic vessel Resilience now, a small ship that carried messages between human worlds and alien civilizations. It wasn't exciting work, but it mattered. Humans were still learning their place in the galaxy. His communication device buzzed. Taeho pulled it from his pocket and saw an encrypted signal. His heart skipped. Only 3 people in the galaxy had his private encryption code. One was his admiral. One was his sister. The third was Elder Vess. He opened the message. The old Thornian's face appeared on the screen, but something was wrong. Elder Vess looked tired, frightened even. Behind him, Taeho could see smoke and hear distant explosions. "Captain Kim," Elder Vess said, his voice steady despite the chaos. "I hope this message finds you well. I am sorry to disturb your peace, but I wanted to say goodbye. The Vrekan Empire has come to our world. They want our system for a military outpost. We have no weapons, no military, no way to stop them. I brought this matter to the Galactic Council, but they will not help us. We have no strategic value, they say, no resources worth defending." Another explosion shook the background. Elder Vess didn't flinch. "I do not send this message to ask for rescue. I know humanity is far away and still young among the stars. I send this message to tell you that saving your people was the greatest honor of my life. Those 13 days on New Haven, working beside your doctors, holding your children while they healed, that was when I understood what it meant to serve life itself. Thank you for letting us help you. Thank you for remembering us." The message ended. Taeho stared at the blank screen for a long moment. His hands shook. Not from fear, from rage. He activated his ship's communication system and opened a channel directly to Earth Defense Command. It took 30 seconds for the connection to establish. Admiral Jihoon Choi's face appeared on screen. "Captain Kim, this is unusual." "Is everything—" "The Thornians are under attack," Taeho said. His voice came out flat and cold. "The Vrekan Empire is invading their homeworld. The Council refused to help them." Jihoon's expression changed. The Admiral was 60 years old, a veteran of Earth's early colonial conflicts. He had been a young soldier on New Haven during the plague. He remembered the Thornians too. "How long do they have?" Jihoon asked. Elder Vess didn't say. "Days maybe?" "A week at most." "How far?" 87 light years. Jihoon was quiet for exactly 3 seconds. Then he said, "Send me everything you have. I'm mobilizing the fleet." "Admiral, the Rekans have 300 warships. We have—" "I know what we have, Captain. I also know what we owe. Get your ship ready to move. You're joining the fleet. Sir, the Council will... The Council can burn, Ji-hoon said. 30 years ago, 17 people saved 40,000 of us. Today we return the favor. I don't care if the Vreckens have 300 ships or 3,000. I don't care if every species in the galaxy condemns us. The Thornians came when everyone else turned away. Now it's our turn. Teho felt something loosen in his chest, something hard and tight that had lived there since he watched Elder Vess's message. Yes, sir. When do we leave? 12 hours. I'm recalling every ship, every soldier, every pilot. We're bringing everything we have. The Vreckens will destroy us, Ji-hoon smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had decided to walk through fire. Maybe. Or maybe they'll learn why humans tell each other stories about war. Maybe they'll learn what happens when you hurt our friends. The connection ended. Teho stood alone on his ship, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 87 light-years away, the Thornians were dying. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was watching and doing nothing. Let them watch, Teho thought. Let them see what humanity does for those who showed us kindness. He pressed his hand to the monument one last time, feeling the names under his palm. 40,000 people alive because 17 chose to die. Now humanity would choose. Now humanity would show the galaxy what loyalty meant. His ship's engines hummed to life. In 12 hours, the human fleet would gather. In 2 weeks, they would reach the Thornian homeworld, and the galaxy would learn to fear the most dangerous thing in the universe. A human keeping a promise. Admiral Ji-hoon Choi stood in the command center of Earth's primary defense station, watching ships arrive from every corner of human space. 53 vessels. That was everything Earth could gather in 12 hours. Destroyers, frigates, carriers, support ships, even a few mining vessels that volunteered to help. Against the Vrecken Empire's 300 warships, it looked like nothing. But Ji-hoon knew something the galaxy didn't. Humanity had been preparing for this day. Not for this specific battle, perhaps, but for the moment when the galaxy would push too hard, demand too much, threaten someone humanity cared about. For 30 years, while other species saw humans as weak and emotional, Earth had been building, learning, training. Admiral, the Council is calling, his communication officer said. Ambassador Yuna is on the line. Ji-hoon activated the screen. Ambassador Yuna O appeared, standing in the Galactic Council chambers. Behind her, hundreds of alien representatives sat in their seats, watching with various expressions of curiosity and boredom. Admiral, Yuna said carefully. Her eyes told him to be cautious. The Council has heard about your fleet movements. They want to know your intentions. Put it on the main feed, Ji-hoon said. Let them all hear this. Yuna pressed something on her device. The Council chamber's main screen lit up with Ji-hoon's face. Suddenly, every alien representative was paying attention. People of the Galactic Council, Ji-hoon began. His voice was calm, almost gentle. 30 years ago, humanity joined your organization. We were young, inexperienced, and grateful to be accepted. We tried to follow your rules. We tried to understand your ways. We thought civilization meant something different out here among the stars. A Scath representative, a tall reptilian creature with silver scales, made a dismissive gesture. If this is about the Thornian situation we've already explained, the matter is closed. The Vreckens have legitimate territorial claims. The Thornians were dying from a plague. Ji-hoon continued, ignoring the interruption. 40,000 of our people needed help. We begged every species in range to send aid. You all said no. Every single one of you. You cited protocols, regulations, risk assessments. You let our children die because saving them wasn't profitable. That's not... Another representative started. Only the Thornians came, Ji-hoon said, his voice growing harder. 17 of them died saving our people. 17 individuals who gained nothing, who risked everything, who gave their lives for strangers. And do you know what your council did? You mocked them, called them fools, said they wasted resources on a species with no value. The chamber went quiet. Today the Thornians asked for help. Today your council said no again. Not profitable, you said. No strategic value, you said. Just like you said about us, Yuna stood perfectly still. But Ji-hoon could see the small smile at the corner of her mouth. So I'm here to inform the Council that Earth is withdrawing from your protection protocols. We're invoking our ancient laws of honor and debt. In 13 days, the human fleet will reach the Thornian homeworld. We will defend our friends. We will repay our debt. And if the Vrecken Empire wants to stop us, they're welcome to try. The Scath representative stood up, scales rattling with agitation. You're declaring war on a major power over a worthless species? Are you insane? The Vreckens will destroy you. Ji-hoon leaned closer to the camera. Maybe, but they'll learn something first. They'll learn that humans don't abandon their friends. They'll learn that humanity remembers, and they'll learn why we spent 10,000 years fighting each other before we reached the stars. He cut the connection. The command center was silent for a moment. Then Sora Lee, his tactical officer, spoke up. That was quite a speech, Admiral. Did it work? Sora pulled up data on her screen. Every major news network in the galaxy just picked up the feed. Half the council members are screaming for sanctions against Earth. The other half are suspiciously quiet. But sir, the numbers haven't changed. 300 Vrecken warships against our 53. Even with surprise and tactics, the probability of success is... I don't want to hear probabilities, Ji-hoon said. I want solutions. Show me what we have. Sora brought up a holographic display of the Thornian system. Red dots marked Vrecken ships. They surrounded the homeworld like a vice, bombarding population centers from orbit. The Vreckens are using standard siege tactics, Sora explained. They're breaking the Thornians' will to resist before landing ground forces. Their fleet is organized in 3 defensive rings. Heavy battleships in the outer ring, cruisers in the middle, support vessels near the planet. It's a solid formation. Very hard to break through. What if we don't break through? Asked Commander Minho Kang, who had just entered the room. He was the head of Earth's Special Operations Forces, a quiet man with scars on his hands and eyes that had seen too much combat. What if we go around? Sora frowned. Explain, Minho pointed at the hologram. They're expecting a frontal assault, fleet-to-fleet combat, standard tactics. But what if we board their ships instead? What if we get inside their formation and tear them apart from within? That's suicide, Sora said. Our boarding shuttles would be destroyed before they got close. Not if they don't see them coming. Minho smiled. We've been developing stealth insertion craft for 5 years. Small, fast, and visible to most sensors. We could put commando teams on a dozen Vrecken ships before they knew we were there. Ji-hoon studied the hologram. It's risky. Everything about this is risky, Minho replied. But the Vreckens think we're primitives. They think we'll fight like everyone else in the galaxy fights. They don't know what humans are capable of when we're angry. Sora pulled up additional data. If we combine stealth insertions with cyber warfare and precision strikes, we might have a chance. We'd need to move fast, hit them before they can adapt. How fast? Ji-hoon asked. 6 hours from entering the system to total victory or total defeat. No middle ground. Ji-hoon looked at his officers. Sora, brilliant and calculating, already running simulations in her head. Minho, calm and deadly, ready to lead his soldiers into hell. Behind them, hundreds of crew members prepared ships, loaded weapons, and said goodbye to families they might never see again. Send the order, Ji-hoon said. Every ship jumps to the Thornian system in 13 days. Tell the fleet to prepare for close combat. Tell them to forget everything they learned about civilized warfare. We're going to war the human way. Yes, sir, Sora and Minho said together. As they left to carry out his orders, Ji-hoon looked at the hologram one more time. 300 enemy ships, millions of Vrecken soldiers, an empire that had never lost a war. Against 53 human vessels and a debt of honor, the galaxy thought this was madness. Maybe it was. But 30 years ago, 17 Thornians chose compassion over safety. Today, humanity would show the galaxy what that compassion had bought them. An ally who would burn empires to repay a kindness. The fleet would leave in 13 days. In 13 days, the Vreckens would learn why humans were the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Not because they were strong, because they were loyal. Warlord Crag stood on the bridge of his flagship watching the Thornian world burn below. This was his 43rd conquest. He had never lost a battle, never retreated, never shown mercy. The Vrecken Empire expanded because of commanders like him. Strong, ruthless, efficient. Status report, he commanded. His second officer checked the displays. Orbital bombardment is 70% complete. Thornian population centers are destroyed or abandoned. No military resistance. No defensive weapons. They're hiding underground like the weak creatures they are. Crag nodded. The Thornians were pacifists, plant-based beings who refused to fight even when dying. It made this conquest almost boring. Almost. How long until we can land occupation forces? 2 days, Warlord. We're clearing the final defensive positions now. Increase bombardment intensity. I want this finished in 1 day. Yes, Warlord. Crag looked at the tactical display showing his 300 ships surrounding the planet. Perfect formation. Perfect execution. The Galactic Council had protested, of course, but they always protested. They would complain and argue and eventually accept the new borders. That was how the galaxy worked. The strong took what they wanted. The weak died. 5 light-years away, a small stealth ship drifted in empty space. Inside, pilot Do-Yun Shin sat perfectly still, watching his sensors. He had been here for 5 days, invisible to Vrecken detection systems, recording everything. Every ship position, every communication frequency, every patrol route. Do-Hyun was young, only 23, but he was the best stealth pilot in the human fleet. He had volunteered for this mission knowing he might not survive. One mistake, one sensor ping, and 300 Vrecken warships would turn him into dust. But he didn't make mistakes. His communication system buzzed with an encrypted signal. The human fleet had arrived at the edge of the system. Do-Hyun began transmitting everything he had learned. Ship positions, shield frequencies, command protocols. The Vreckens thought they were fighting blind enemies. They were wrong. On the Thornian homeworld, combat medic Nari Yoon crawled through the ruins of what had been a healing sanctuary. Fires burned everywhere. The beautiful gardens where Thornian healers grew medicinal plants were now just ash and smoke. Bodies lay in the streets, not from violence, but from buildings collapsing during the bombardment. Nari was part of the advance team, inserted via stealth drop pod 20 hours ago. While the fleet prepared to engage the Vrecken armada, her job was to find survivors and guide them to safe zones. She carried medical supplies, not weapons. That was the human way in this operation. Soldiers would fight. Medics would save lives. "This is Nari," she whispered into her radio. "I'm inside the old city. Heavy damage. Looking for Elder Vess's last known location." "Copy that," replied her commander. "Fleet engages in 2 hours. Get the civilians to the underground shelters." Nari moved through the destroyed streets, her scanner searching for life signs. She found a group of Thornians hiding in a collapsed building. 12 of them, including 3 children. They looked at her with fear and confusion. "I'm human," Nari said gently, removing her helmet so they could see her face. "We're here to help. Can you walk?" An older Thornian stared at her. "Humans, but you're so far away. How did you—" "We came as fast as we could," Nari said. "We came for Elder Vess. We came for all of you." "Elder Vess is in the central shelter," the Thornian said. "But you cannot reach him. The Reckons control the surface. Their soldiers are everywhere." "Let us worry about the Reckons," Nari said. "Right now, I need to get you somewhere safe." She led the group through underground passages, following maps that Do-Hyun had sent from orbit. The Reckons were good at orbital bombardment, but they didn't understand underground warfare. Humans did. Humans had spent thousands of years fighting in tunnels, sewers, and bunkers. An hour later, Nari reached the central shelter. It was carved deep into the planet's crust, protected by layers of rock and earth. Inside, thousands of Thornians huddled together in the darkness. And in the center of the shelter, sitting with a group of frightened children, was Elder Vess. The old Thornian looked up as Nari approached. His eyes widened. "You came." "Of course we came," Nari said, "but the Reckons have 300 ships. Your fleet cannot—" "Watch us," Nari said with a smile. Above the planet, Warlord Crag noticed something on his sensors. Small contacts appearing at the edge of the system. He enhanced the view. 53 ships. Human ships. For a moment, Crag simply stared. Then he started laughing. His bridge crew joined in, their harsh voices echoing through the command center. "The humans," Crag said between laughs. "The humans came to fight us. The primitives who just joined the galaxy 30 years ago think they can challenge the Vrecken Empire. Should we deploy defensive formations, Warlord?" his second officer asked. "No," Crag said, wiping his eyes. "Let them come. Let them see how real warriors fight. This will be educational for them." He opened a communication channel to the approaching human fleet. Captain Tae-ho Kim's face appeared on the screen. "Human Commander," Crag said. "I am Warlord Crag of the Vrecken Empire. You have entered a military zone. Retreat now or be destroyed." Tae-ho looked at him with cold eyes. "Warlord Crag, I am Captain Tae-ho Kim of Earth Defense Force. You are attacking our friends. Surrender now or face the consequences." Crag laughed again. "Consequences? You have 50 ships against my 300. You cannot win. You cannot even slow us down. Why throw away your lives for these worthless plant creatures?" They're not worthless, Taiho said quietly. They saved 40,000 of our people when everyone else turned away. They lost 17 of their own to give us a cure. They asked for nothing in return, so now we return the favor. How touching, Crag said mockingly. The primitives have feelings. It won't save you. My empire has conquered 100 worlds. What makes you think you can stop us? Taiho's expression didn't change. You made a mistake, Warlord. You hurt our friends. Now you learn what humans do to those who hurt our friends. Crag's smile faded. There was something in the human's voice, something cold and final. For just a moment, the Warlord felt something he hadn't felt in years. Doubt all ships, Crag commanded. Battle formations. Prepare to engage the human fleet. Show them what it means to challenge the Recon Empire. 300 warships moved into position. Weapons powered up. Shields activated. The largest military force in this sector of space prepared to crush the tiny human fleet that dared to challenge them. On his flagship, Captain Taiho Kim watched the Recon formation organize itself. Beside him, his crew worked in silent efficiency. No fear, no hesitation. They all knew what was about to happen. All ships, Taiho said into the fleet-wide channel. You know what we're here to do. You know what we owe. The Thornians saved us when we were dying. Today, we save them. Whatever happens next, the galaxy will remember this day. They'll remember that humanity keeps its promises. He looked at his tactical officer. Begin Operation Reckoning. The human fleet accelerated toward the Recon Armada. 53 ships against 300. The galaxy watched, expecting to see humanity's extinction. They were about to witness something very different. Warlord Crag smiled one last time. Fire! The battle began. The Recon fleet opened fire first. Energy beams and missiles filled the space between the two forces, a wall of destruction meant to erase the human ships before they could get close. It was overwhelming firepower, the kind that had broken hundreds of enemy fleets before. The human ships scattered, not in panic. In calculated precision, each vessel moved on a different vector, accelerating and turning in patterns that seemed random but weren't. The Recon targeting system struggled to lock on. Ships that should have been hit somehow weren't there when the weapons arrived. On her tactical station, Sora Lee watched the battle unfold exactly as she had planned. Evasive maneuvers are working. The Vrekins are still using predictive targeting algorithms. They've never fought an enemy that moves like us. Because no one fights like us, Admiral Jihoon said. Phase 2. Sora activated the next stage of Operation Reckoning. From the human ships, thousands of small objects launched into space. The Rekins saw them on sensors and ignored them. Mines, probably. Debris, nothing dangerous, they were wrong. The objects were drones, millions of them, each no bigger than a human fist. They spread through the battlefield like a swarm of insects, moving too fast and too small for the Reckon point defense systems to track effectively. When they reached the enemy fleet, they didn't explode. They attached. Within seconds, every Reckon ship had hundreds of drones clinging to its hull. The drones began transmitting. Jamming signals, fake sensor readings, communication interference. Suddenly, the perfect Reckon formation couldn't coordinate, couldn't see, couldn't communicate effectively. Now they're blind, Sora said. Initiating cyber attack. Human hackers connected through quantum-encrypted channels launched their assault. The Reckons had strong cyber defenses, but they were designed to stop other Reckon attacks. They weren't ready for human ingenuity. Humans had spent centuries hacking each other's systems, finding vulnerabilities, exploiting weaknesses. It was a game to some, a war to others. Either way, humans were very good at it. Shield systems flickered on 20 Reckon ships, then 40, then 100. Their formations fell apart as ships lost coordination. Some vessels fired at their own allies, their sensors feeding them false information. Kinetic strikes launch, Jihoon ordered. The human ships fired. Not energy weapons, not missiles. Solid metal rods accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed using magnetic rails. The Reckons had shields designed to stop energy weapons and explosive warheads. They worked perfectly against those threats. They did almost nothing against solid metal moving at relativistic speeds. The rods punched through Reckon ships like they were made of paper. No explosions, just massive kinetic energy transferred into the target. Hulls cracked. Armor shattered. Internal systems failed. Within minutes, 30 Reckon ships were disabled or destroyed. Warlord Crag stared at his tactical display in disbelief. What are they doing? These tactics, they're not standard. They're not military. They're hunting us, his second officer said quietly. Like predators, Crag snarled. All ships close formation. Focus fire on individual targets. Overwhelm their defenses. But the human ships wouldn't let them regroup. They moved through the wrecking fleet like sharks through a school of fish, striking and moving, never staying still long enough to be targeted effectively. Every tactic was designed to confuse, disorient, and disable. And then Commander Minho Kang's boarding teams arrived. The stealth insertion craft had launched hours ago, drifting through the battlefield disguised as debris. They were designed by engineers who studied submarine warfare, aerial infiltration, and urban assault tactics. Every lesson humanity learned from 10,000 years of fighting each other went into these small, deadly vessels. They attached to wrecking ships like parasites. Breaching charges burned through hull plating. Airlocks were forced open. And human soldiers entered. The Reckons were warriors. They were proud fighters who had trained for combat their entire lives. But they had never fought humans before. Minho's team moved through the corridors of a Recon cruiser with practiced efficiency. They used tactics from urban warfare, room clearing, close quarters combat. Flashbangs disoriented enemies. Smoke grenades created confusion. The soldiers moved in pairs, covering each other, checking corners, clearing spaces with mechanical precision. The Reckons fought back hard, but they couldn't adapt fast enough. They were used to fighting in open battles, warrior against warrior. The humans fought like ghosts, appearing and disappearing, striking from unexpected angles, using the ship's own structure against its crew. Within an hour, Minho's team had captured the cruiser's bridge. The Reckon commander stared at the human soldiers in shock. How? We are the finest warriors in the Empire. How did you— You're warriors, Minho said, his voice tired. We're soldiers. There's a difference. He activated the cruiser's weapon systems and turned them against the Reckon fleet. Other boarding teams did the same. Suddenly, the Reckons weren't just fighting humans. They were fighting their own captured ships. On the flagship, Warlord Crag watched his fleet fall apart. In 6 hours of combat, he had lost over 100 ships. Captured vessels were firing on their former allies. His communications were jammed. His sensors were feeding him false information. And the human fleet just kept coming, relentless and precise. Retreat, Crag ordered. All ships retreat to rally point. His bridge exploded. Minho and his team had breached the flagship. They moved through the massive vessel like a surgical strike, hitting critical systems, eliminating resistance, pushing toward the command center. The Reckon guards fought desperately, but human special forces were designed for exactly this kind of mission. When Minho reached the bridge, Crag was waiting with his personal guard. The warlord was massive, heavily armed, and furious. You dare board my ship? You primitive creatures think you can challenge me? Minho didn't answer. He just signaled his team. They moved with perfect coordination, using tactics refined through countless training scenarios. The Reckon guards were brave and skilled, but they fell one by one. Finally, Crag stood alone, wounded and disarmed. Captain Taiho Kim's face appeared on the bridge view screen. Warlord Crag, Taiho said. Your fleet is broken. Your soldiers are surrendering. It's over. Crag stared at the screen in disbelief. How, you had 50 ships? We had 300. We should have crushed you. You thought we were weak because we valued honor, Taiho said. You were wrong. We are dangerous because we value honor. We have spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of violence against our own species. We hoped we'd never need those skills again. We hoped the galaxy had evolved beyond what we left behind on Earth. Taiho's expression hardened. But you touched our friends. You hurt people who showed us kindness. So now you learn what humanity does to those who threaten the people we care about. Admiral Ji-hoon's voice came over the fleet-wide channel, broadcast on every frequency so the entire galaxy could hear. Let it be known across the stars. Humanity remembers its friends. We repay our debts. And we will destroy anyone who threatens those we have sworn to protect. The Thornians saved 40,000 of our people. Today, we saved all of theirs. Across the battlefield, Reckon ships were surrendering. Some tried to flee and were hunted down. Others were boarded and captured. The mighty armada that had never lost a battle was destroyed in less than 12 hours. On the planet below, Nari helped Thornians emerge from their shelters. Elder Vess stood beside her, looking up at the sky where human ships now orbited peacefully. You destroyed an empire for us, Elder Vess said quietly. No, Nari replied. We defended our friends. There's a difference. In the ruins of Warlord Krag's flagship, Minho received the surrender of the remaining Vrekan forces. He looked at the defeated warriors with no satisfaction, no pride, just tired determination. Remember this day, Minho told them. Remember what happens when you hurt humanity's friends. Tell your empire, tell the galaxy, we didn't want this war, but we will always finish what others start. The battle for the Thornian homeworld was over. Humanity had won, and the galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. 3 weeks after the battle, the Thornian homeworld was coming back to life. Human construction crews worked alongside Thornian survivors, rebuilding cities that the Rekans had destroyed. Medical teams treated the wounded. Engineers restored power grids and water systems. Everywhere, humans and Thornians worked together. Nari Yoon stood in the healing sanctuary that she had first entered during the bombardment. It was being rebuilt now, with Thornian gardens growing again and human-designed structures protecting them from future attacks. A young Thornian child approached her holding a small flower. Thank you for saving us, the child said in broken human language. Nari took the flower gently. Your people saved us first. We were just returning the favor. In orbit, Captain Taiho Kim watched the reconstruction efforts from his ship. The Vrekan prisoners had been transferred to Galactic Council custody. The captured warships were being studied by human engineers who found them less impressive up close. Good weapons, good shields, but nothing revolutionary. The Rekans had relied on numbers and intimidation, not innovation. His communication device buzzed. Admiral Jihoon wanted to talk. Taiho activated the screen. Captain, you're needed at the council chambers. Ambassador Yuna has called an emergency session. What's happening? Everything, Jihoon said with a slight smile. The galaxy is panicking. They just watched us destroy the Rekan invasion force, and now they don't know what to do with us. 2 hours later, Taiho stood beside Ambassador Yuna in the Galactic Council chambers. The room was packed. Every species had sent representatives. Some looked angry. Some looked frightened. All of them looked at humanity differently than they had a month ago. The council leader, an ancient being from a species called the Mindari, spoke first. Ambassador Yuna O. Humanity's actions in the Thornian system have caused significant concern throughout the galaxy. While we appreciate that you were defending an ally, your tactics were extremely aggressive. Some council members believe you used excessive force. Yuna looked at the council leader with calm eyes. Excessive force? The Rekans brought 300 warships to destroy a peaceful species. We brought what we needed to stop them. The Scath representative, the one who had mocked humanity's loyalty, stood up. His silver scales didn't rattle as much as before. The issue is not whether you won the battle. The issue is that you demonstrated military capabilities far beyond what anyone expected. You defeated a major empire in less than a day. You used tactics we've never seen before. You boarded and captured warships using methods that violated every standard warfare protocol. We used human methods, Yuna said simply. Methods we learned from 10,000 years of fighting each other. You all assumed we were primitives because we were new to space. You were wrong. Another representative, a floating being made of crystalline structures, spoke. What humanity did was impressive but also terrifying. If you can destroy the Rekan Empire so easily, what's stopping you from attacking others? Taiho stepped forward. May I speak, Ambassador? Yuna nodded. Taiho faced the council. For 30 years we tried to fit into your galaxy. We followed your rules. We accepted your dismissals. We watched as you ignored suffering because it wasn't profitable to help. We hoped you were better than what we left behind on Earth. We hoped the galaxy had evolved beyond the cruelty and selfishness that marked our own history. He paused, letting his words sink in. But when the Thornians needed help, you said no. Just like you said no when we were dying from the plague. The only difference is that now we're strong enough to help ourselves. The council leader shifted uncomfortably. What are humanity's intentions? Ambassador Yuna pulled out a document. Humanity is issuing a new doctrine. We call it the Thornian Doctrine, named after the species that taught us what real compassion means. She activated a holographic display that showed the doctrine's text to everyone in the chamber. From this day forward, any species that shows kindness to humanity will have Earth's protection. Any species that helps another species in need will have Earth's friendship. Any species that attacks Earth's allies will face Earth's full military response. The chamber erupted. Representatives shouted, some in anger, some in fear. The Scath representative's voice cut through the chaos. You can't just declare yourself the galaxy's protector. That's not how this works. You're right, Una said coldly. That's not how it works in your galaxy, but it's how it works in ours. For 30 years you told us to adapt, to learn your ways, to accept that honor and loyalty were primitive concepts. So we learned, we adapted, and now we're teaching you something. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of every representative. Humanity doesn't start fights, but we will always finish them. We don't conquer for territory or resources, but we will destroy anyone who hurts our friends. You wanted us to understand your galaxy. Instead, we're going to show you a different way. The council leader called for order. When the chamber finally quieted, he spoke carefully. And if the council doesn't accept this doctrine, then the council doesn't accept it, Una said. We're not asking for permission. We're informing you of our intentions. You can choose to work with us or against us. But understand this. The Thornians showed us kindness when no one else would. We will never forget that. And we will never let it happen to them again. She turned to leave, but stopped. Oh, and one more thing. We're sharing our reconstruction technology with the Thornians. We're establishing a permanent defense station in their system. And we're opening diplomatic relations with any species that wants to build relationships based on mutual respect, rather than strategic value. As Yuna and Taiho left the chamber, they could hear the representatives arguing behind them. The galaxy was changing, whether it wanted to or not. On the Thornian homeworld, Elder Vest stood with Admiral Jihoon, looking at the rebuilt city. Human and Thornian architecture blended together, creating something new and beautiful. What have we done? Elder Vest asked quietly. When we saved your people, we never imagined it would lead to this. You've reshaped galactic politics, made enemies of powerful species, all because of us. Jihoon shook his head. You saved 40,000 lives because it was the right thing to do. You didn't ask for payment. You didn't demand favors. You just helped because you could. That taught us something important. What did it teach you? That compassion isn't weakness. That kindness is worth protecting. That in a galaxy full of species calculating profit and strategic value, there are still people who do the right thing simply because it's right. Jihoon smiled. You reminded us why we wanted to reach the stars in the first place. Not to conquer, not to dominate, but to find others who shared our values. Elder Vest was quiet for a moment. And now? Now the galaxy knows that humanity protects its friends. Species are already reaching out to us. Small civilizations that felt ignored by the council. Young species afraid of being exploited. They see what we did for you and they want that kind of ally. What about the Vreckens? The other empires? They'll think twice before attacking anyone we care about, Jihoon said. Not because we're conquerors, but because we proved something. We proved that loyalty matters, that honor matters, that some things are worth fighting for. 6 months later, the Galactic Council held another session. This time, 12 new species had joined humanity's alliance. They called themselves the Coalition of Common Cause. Their founding principle was simple: help others, defend friends, never abandon those who show you kindness. Ambassador Yuna stood before the council once more. We're not trying to replace you. We're offering an alternative, a galaxy where compassion is valued, where helping others isn't seen as foolish, where loyalty means something. The council leader looked tired. Humanity has certainly made its mark. The question is, what happens next? Yuna smiled. Next, we build a better galaxy, one where species like the Thornians aren't mocked for showing kindness, one where asking for help doesn't make you weak, one where the strong protect the vulnerable instead of exploiting them. On Earth, a new monument was being built beside the one on New Haven. This one had different names. The 17 Thornians who died saving humans, the human soldiers who died defending Thornians, and a simple inscription: we remember, we repay, we protect. Captain Taeho Kim stood before the monument with his crew. They had been changed by the battle. All of them. They had learned that humanity's greatest strength wasn't weapons or tactics or technology. It was the willingness to keep promises, to honor debts, to fight for friends even when the odds seemed impossible. The galaxy had wanted humanity to adapt to their way of doing things. Instead, humanity had reminded the galaxy of something they had forgotten. That civilization wasn't about strategic calculations or profitable alliances. It was about choosing to help someone in need, even when it cost you everything. The Thornians had made that choice 30 years ago. Humanity made it when the Thornians needed them. And now, across the galaxy, other species were making the same choice, not because it was profitable, not because it was strategically sound, but because it was right. And in the end, that was what separated humanity from the empires that came before them. Not their weapons, not their tactics, not their technology, their loyalty. The galaxy had shaken in fear when humans showed their strength, but it would shake even more as they showed their compassion, because humanity had learned something the galaxy had forgotten. The greatest power in the universe wasn't the ability to destroy your enemies. It was the willingness to die for your friends.